All right, so you're trying to find some money for college and you're wondering to yourself, where do I even find scholarships? What are schools and organizations looking for in these scholarship essays? Can I reuse my essays? And it'd be really nice if someone put together a guide walking through the top 10 scholarship essay prompts and a guide for writing each one. That's what this guide is all about. Who am I? I'm Ethan Sawyer, the college essay guy. I wrote the best-selling book on college essays, and I'll be your guide. Let's do this. So where do you even find scholarships? I like two different sites. One is called Going Merry. They have a nice search engine that you can search for scholarships. The other one's called College Greenlight, also has a great search engine. Try them both. So what are colleges looking for on these essays? Well, broadly speaking, they're looking for the skills, values, qualities, and interests that you're gonna bring with you to the college campus. Now, there are so many different ways to do that, and each prompt is gonna have its own peculiarities, which is why I'm gonna walk you through the top 10 prompts for these scholarship essays. Before we get to that though, let's get organized. So chances are you're not just applying for one or two scholarships, but you're applying for a wide range of scholarships. And if you're not, you might consider going to one of the search engines I just mentioned and researching and finding more prompts, more scholarships to apply to. Why? 4 reasons. Number 1, more free money. Number 2, it's relatively easy, as I'll explain in just a second. Number 3, because it's actually gonna improve the quality of your essays. And number 4, I'll explain at the end of this video. So I'm gonna recommend you create what's called your scholarship essay tracker. And you'll find a link below this video to a spreadsheet that you can download and use for yourself that's basically gonna involve putting like what the name of the scholarship is, what the prompt is, when it's due, and just list a bunch of them. And you're gonna look for 2 things. Number 1, have you already written something for your college application, or let's say maybe your personal statement, that could work for one or more of those prompts? Probably more. And number 2, are there certain prompts that double or triple or quadruple? In other words, do some of these look alike? Because if so, you can write what's called a super essay. What's a super essay? It's basically one that works for multiple different prompts. Just to give you a quick example, check out these different prompts. Tell us about you. How are you unique? Tell us about a time you failed and what you learned from it, and what are your academic and/or career goals. So as you can probably guess, you could definitely write an essay that would work for multiple different prompts. In fact, I'm gonna recommend it. And if you want an example, you can find below this video one called the With Debate essay, which was originally a personal statement that worked for multiple different scholarship essay prompts. You might be wondering, wait, is it okay to do that? Are they gonna check me on that? Now, if you're applying to a scholarship organization that is not gonna see your personal statement, submit your personal statement. If it works for the prompt, go for it. If, however, you're applying for a scholarship and they've already seen your personal statement and you might need to ask them, then you're not gonna wanna submit the same essay. Obviously, you're gonna wanna write a separate one. So the first big bit of advice I wanna give you is to write essays that work for multiple prompts. So open up your scholarship essay tracker, and then if you want, you can go as far as color coding which are the different prompts that'll work for different ideas, as you can see in this example here. All right, now let's get into the top 10 scholarship essay prompts. Number 1 is the Tell Us About You essay. Now this is basically some broad question like, hey, tell us about what you are. It's like that awkward question that someone asks you in an interview. They're like, tell me about yourself. And you're like, I don't know what to say, right? But this is a great chance to use, wait for it, your personal statement. Now, if you've written a personal statement, go back and look at it for 2 things. Number 1, does it actually answer the prompt? And number 2, does it reveal the skills, qualities, values, and interests that you're gonna carry forward with you, like I said, in college and in life? Now, if you haven't written one, or if you feel like, I don't know if it's really doing what it's supposed to be doing, you can check out below this video another video called My Crash Course to the Personal Statement, where I walk you through in a step-by-step way how to brainstorm a bunch of ideas, how to figure out your structure for your personal statement, and ultimately how to revise it and make sure it's doing its job. And that's gonna help you for, yes, not only your personal statement, but also for these scholarship essays. The reason I'm not getting into detail in this video is because I did a whole separate long one on that. And if I were to put it in here, it would just make this super epic and long. The number 2 most popular scholarship prompt is super epic and long. The number 2 most popular scholarship, number 2 thing that's really what they wanna know about. Now, the thing about this is that so many students are writing about similar sports in similar ways. In fact, consider this frame. A common, AKA boring essay oftentimes will choose a common topic, make common connections, I'll explain these in just a second, discuss common achievements, and use common language. Whereas A standout scholarship essay for this prompt will use an uncommon topic, if possible, give uncommon connections, we'll discuss uncommon achievements, if you have uncommon achievements, many students don't, and use uncommon language. Quick definitions. First, your topic. Now, a common topic is going to be something like basketball, football, lacrosse. These are the things that students are writing about all the time. But it's not that you shouldn't write about that. It's just that if you do write about that, it's going to be a little bit harder to stand out, but I'm going to show you how to stand out in just like 30 seconds. Second, I mentioned connections. Connections are going to be the values that you would connect to your sport, whatever it is. Now, the common connections are probably going to be things like discipline, hard work, and perseverance. And the trick to standing out is going to be finding some uncommon connections, which again, I'll walk you through in just a second. Next, I mentioned achievements. Common achievements are things like winning a local tournament or winning most improved player or being captain of your team. And then uncommon achievements are things like, being the only female on an all-boys wrestling team, or playing at a national level or an international level or something like that. So those are things that are going to be more apt to stand out. But if you haven't done those things, again, don't worry, don't stress out. You can still write a great essay, stand by. Then I mentioned language. So common language is going to be things like, last season we really dug deep and we learned what being a team is really all about. I'm going to ask you to steer away from language like that. Basically things that everybody else could say in their essay in that same voice. And I know. You're thinking, but Ethan, how do I played a common sport. I can't go back in time and unplay that sport, which is a really weird image. It's okay. Here's how you can stand out. Step 1, brainstorm the cliche version of your essay. So below this video, you'll find something called the values exercise. And I want you to look at that and I want you to think, okay, based on my sport, what are the things that everybody else is gonna say? So what are they gonna focus on? And you can see the values exercise here. So I look at this and I go, okay, well, a common connection for football might be teamwork or responsibility or hard work. And so the point here is to look at those things and then to not write about them. Step 2 is to create some uncommon connections. Now, what do I mean? Go back to the values list and see if you can find 3 to 4 values that maybe not everyone associates with your sport, but you could probably think of an example of how you learned this value from this sport. So just to give an example, let's say you're writing about football. An uncommon connection to football might be resourcefulness or healthy boundaries or critical thinking. Now, isn't that already a more interesting football essay? Much more interesting than the discipline, hard work, and perseverance football essay? Step 3 is to brainstorm a specific example from your life that would illustrate that value. Let me give you a quick example. Football has made me a better reader. What? Check it out. As a cornerback, I meticulously and systematically scan the offense looking for nuances in formation before the quarterback snaps the ball, all in a matter of seconds. It's not unlike annotating a novel. Wait for it. Finding the subtle complexities in my rival team's spread offense has not only led me to intercepting a pass, but has given me the skills to fully digest, for example, Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, where the smallest and, at first glance, almost unnoticeable details add to an intricate story I wouldn't appreciate in the same way had I not been able to notice those details in the first place. You see how that makes for a more interesting essay about football? So what we're looking at is the uncommon value, which is critical thinking, plus how he applied it elsewhere in his English class. That's what we're looking for. If you can find 3 to 4 of these, just put them basically in chronological order, and you'll already have an up-leveled sports essay. Step 4 is basically to just decide what that order is. If you want it to be chronological in the order they happened, great, and then write your draft. Up next is the why major or why career essay. In other words, why do you want to pursue the thing that you want to pursue? Now, I call this the why major essay, and there are 3 steps to writing it. Step 1, brainstorm the mini movie moments. In other words, these are the specific examples that are visual that you can think of that in your life led you to be interested in this career. So, quick example, why biology? Well, I remember in elementary school getting my first dinosaur toy and reading all about dinosaur books. And then in middle school, I remember visiting museums and I got to see water under a microscope. My mind was blown. And then in high school, I leveled up. I did some online research, got an internship where we analyzed brainwaves and dissected a stingray. And it was so awesome. So take these and just bullet point them, just like in this example right here, so that you've got basically, here are the scenes that I'm going to show in this movie, aka the movie of your essay. Once you've done this, Put them in order that makes sense for you. And chronological order is great here because it's actually gonna make your transitions really easy to write, because you can be like, a couple years later, and then segue into the next part. Pro tip, if you're writing a super short essay, you can just do like one sentence per movie moment. But if you're writing a longer one, which is to say if it's over 250 or 300 words, you can probably devote like a specific paragraph to each of these movie moments. And see if at the end of each paragraph, you can answer the question, so what? So what did you learn from this? Or what value or insight did you gain from that particular experience? Step 3 is you're gonna wanna decide if you wanna include your thesis, which is to say, I want to go into X career or I want to pursue X major. If you want to include that at the beginning, at the middle, or at the end. And below this video, you'll see 3 different example essays, one that uses it at the beginning, one that puts it at the middle, one that puts it at the end. I think this is an essay where actually putting in, I want to study this particular thing is a good idea. And it could work at the beginning, middle, or end, as you'll see in the examples below. And by the way, if you're watching this and you're like, I have to write this essay, but I have no idea what I want to major in or pursue, don't worry, pick a placeholder, something that you're interested in studying in college, and basically create your essay around that. So what are the moments that led you to become interested in that thing, whatever it is, and then use it as a placeholder with, in the back of your mind, the thought that if you want to switch your major, then you probably can. Make sure that you're applying to a school that will allow you to do that. Most schools do, but maybe just double check. By the way, if you're enjoying this content, I'd love it if you'd give me a like or subscribe to the channel, and make sure you hit that little bell, because that's the notifications that when you click that, you'll get notified when a new video pops up. All right, next is the community service essay, which is like, how have you contributed to the community or given back? And there are 2 approaches that I'd recommend for this. One is if you're not writing about a challenge that you've overcome, then you're writing what I call a montage. And for that, I'd say basically go back to the guide for writing that sports essay and see if you can brainstorm some uncommon values, some uncommon connections that you've developed while doing whatever this community service project was. And like I said earlier, if you can find 3 to 4 of those, that should give you enough content. Just put them in order of how you learned each of those lessons or connected with those values. And that should give you enough content for that essay. So quick example, let's say I volunteered for Cesar Chavez Day. Now, common things you might learn would be like leadership and responsibility, but maybe some more uncommon things you learned were like, I learned to really trust my teammates during that time. And that was something that I was able to apply in my lessons, when I was, in my academics. Or maybe you have something like, while volunteering for Cesar Chavez Day, I learned that I don't always need to be the leader. Like, I can actually be a pretty good support person and follower. And that might give you a nice little insight for that essay. Now, that's for those of you who haven't confronted a big challenge on your community service or extracurricular activity project. But if you have confronted a big challenge, and it could be something like, hey, we needed to do a big fundraiser, and that was a huge challenge. Or the big challenge that you were dealing with was like, environmental pollution, then I would recommend a different structure, and it's called the narrative approach, based on something that I call the Elon Musk exercise. And here's how it works. Step 1, identify the problem that you were working against. And again, it could be something local, something in your community, or it could be something global, but make sure it's clear at the start of the essay. Step 2, raise the stakes, which is to say, give us a sense as readers why this challenge, why this problem was a big deal. And you can do this in like 1 or 2 sentences. Step 3, describe what you did. Now, this is maybe like the heart of this essay, and it's gonna be important to use some really strong verbs to give us a sense of the steps you took to solve this problem. So maybe you created flyers to advertise an event, or maybe you organized a team of folks. There's these words: created, organized, promoted. What did you actually do in order to make a difference on this particular challenge or problem, whatever it is you were dealing with? Step 4, clarify your role. So give us a sense of why you were crucial to the success of this project. And that could mean lots of different things. It could mean, I was the person who handled the finances, or I was the person that handled communication between, the sponsors for the organization and the people who were actually doing the work on the ground. Make sure it's clear how you got involved and what role you played in the big picture. Step 5 is to clarify the impact that you had, to share any lessons you learned or values you gained through this experience. And by the way, if you've got specific numbers to support the impact, and then we raised X amount of money, and then as a result, the club, enrollment grew from like 20 people to 30 people. You can share those numbers and it'll give us a sense of like, wow, you really did make a difference, and here are the numbers to prove it. Number 5 is the How Are You Unique essay. Now, you might be a little overwhelmed by this one because the How Are You Unique question is just like a really hard question to answer. But as you can probably guess, I'm gonna say the personal statement that you've written or that you're going to write is probably a pretty good essay that you can use for this. So I'm gonna holler back to my personal statement crash course, which again, you can find linked below this video. You'll also find an example of a student who wrote a nice How Are You Unique essay. And here's some tips on how she did it. Number 1, she completed what I call the 21 details exercise, which I'll explain in a second. And then 2, she created the Everything I Want Colleges to Know About Me list. So if you're trying to come up with ideas, either for this essay or for another prompt, making a list of 21 random facts about yourself, it might seem like a really roundabout way of coming up with ideas, but it actually can generate some really cool possibilities. And you can do this just like on a blank sheet of paper and spend like half an hour doing it. Separate from that, the Everything I Want Colleges to Know About Me list is basically a list of specific things that you want colleges, obviously, to know about you. And you can do this with somebody else, you can do this with a friend, you can do this with a mentor or a parent, you can do this in a group, and just try and brainstorm what are all the things that I feel like by the end of my essay or by the end of my set of essays, I want them to know about me. And you can use these exercises to brainstorm not only for this particular prompt, but also for your personal statement to try and figure out, okay, what is it that makes me unique? The student who wrote the example essay below found that once she created both those exercises, there were like a series of contradictions or contrasts, and she was like, first of all, that makes me unique. And second of all, that could be a pretty cool topic for an essay. So she basically made the thematic thread or topic of her essay these contrasts or contradictions, and talked about a few different ones. Again, theming your paragraphs by like one contradiction or one contrast per paragraph worked really well for her, and she wanted to make sure that she was still revealing the skills, qualities, values, and interests that she was going to carry with her to college and beyond. Number 6 is the failure essay, which is like, tell us about a time you failed and what you learned from it. And for this, I've developed a 15 to 20 minute exercise called the Feelings and Needs exercise that, again, is linked below this video. But if you're feeling too lazy and you're just like, Ethan, give me the TLDR version, then here are the 6 questions to answer for this essay. Number 1, what was the failure that you experienced? Number 2, what was the impact on your life? And I don't mean like emotions, I'm talking about the external effects of that failure on your life. Number 3, how did you feel about it? Number 4, what were the needs underlying your feelings? And I'll explain that in the video, but you have to click it. And number 5, what did you do to meet those needs? And number 6, what did you learn from the experience? Or like I've said before, what are the values that you developed as a result of that experience? Now, if that all feels like a whirlwind, like way too fast, spend 15 minutes, spend 20 minutes doing the feelings and needs exercise, and by the time you finish it, you should have an outline for your entire essay. Number 7 is the what are your academic or career goals essay. Now, there are 2 ways to write this, as you might imagine. One is based on challenges if you face them, and one is if you haven't faced challenges. So if you have faced challenges, and those challenges led you to develop some skills, qualities, values, and interests that are going to serve you in your career, then I would recommend checking out the free guide and looking at the narrative section. And basically that's going to walk you through an exercise. It's going to help you figure out, based on the challenges that I experienced, what were the basically things that I did about it that helped me develop certain skills, qualities, values, and interests. And that's a 3-part structure. So it's like, here's the challenge I faced, here's the stuff I did about it, and oh, by the way, the stuff that I did to overcome that challenge has helped me develop skills, qualities, values, and interests that are going to serve me in my future career, whatever it is. If you haven't faced challenges, or you don't want to write about those challenges, or you feel like those challenges really didn't help you develop the skills, qualities, values, and interests that are going to serve you in that career, then you can do what I call a montage. And that's basically taking whatever the career is that you're interested in. So let's say it's engineer, and brainstorming using the values exercise linked below this video, a series of skills, qualities, values, and interests that will serve you in that future career. And you're going to use that guide that I mentioned earlier with the Why Major guide to basically brainstorm a mini movie version of all the moments that led you to develop each of these values, skills, qualities, or interests. So just to recap that for a second, let's say, for example, I want to talk about engineering and how I got interested in that career. So I might take the values exercise, and I would first look at what are the common values for an engineer that I probably wouldn't want to talk about. So I'm not going to probably want to talk about, efficiency, because that's probably something that a lot of people are going to write about in their engineering essay. And I'm probably not going to want to write about Legos, because that's what everybody writes about in the first paragraph of their engineering essay. See if you can find some uncommon values that people maybe wouldn't expect of someone, connecting to engineering. Once you can find 3 to 4 of those, come up with a specific example from your life that helped you to develop that value. Put those in some kind of order. Chronological order works great. And then that should give you your outline and everything you need to write your first draft. Number 8 is the tell us about a time when an idea or a belief you had was challenged. So for this one, I'm also going to recommend the exercise that I just mentioned called the feelings and needs exercise. And in that video, when I ask you to name what the challenge was, I want you to name what the moment was that challenged you or that challenged your belief, and walk that through the exercise. What you'll probably find and what you'll need for this essay is to clarify in the first third, what was the moment? And you'll probably want to start with the moment when your belief was challenged. And then after that, if you want to say, here's why this was such a challenging thing for me, that could be a great way to raise the stakes, which is to say, to give us a sense of why this moment was so challenging for you. Now, if you want, you can switch those moments. So you can give a sense of like, here's who I was, and then this moment challenged me. But I find it's often more interesting if you start with the moment that challenged you and then do a little flashback to give us context and say, here's why this moment was so challenging for me. And see if you can do that in the first 1/3 of your essay. The next third of the essay, I'm going to ask you to consider, what did I do, or how did that impact me? And then what did I do in order to work through that or to process that? How did that change your actions? How did that change your interactions with other people? Did you have conversations, et cetera, et cetera? And then the third part is answering the so what, which is to say, how did this ultimately change the way you believed or the way you acted or the way you treated others? So again, 1/3, here was the belief that was challenged, and here's why this was such a big challenging thing for me. 1/3, here's what I did about it, how I processed it, and then 1/3, here's what I learned from the experience. Number 9 is the why do you deserve this scholarship essay? And I'm gonna make this one really simple for you. Don't tell them why you deserve the scholarship, show them. Now, what do I mean? Well, if you face challenges, I'm gonna ask you to go through that feelings and needs exercise that I mentioned. Spend about 15 to 20 minutes brainstorming an essay based on the challenges you've experienced, what you've done about it, and what you've learned through those experiences, and that's gonna create an outline for your essay. Now, if you haven't faced challenges or you feel like you don't wanna talk about your challenges for this particular essay, you can go to the free guide linked below this video and choose the montage path. And the montage path is gonna give you basically a few different options that you can choose. Pick one of those options and brainstorm and create an outline based on the walkthrough there. And I didn't put it in here because again, it would make this super long, but make sure that whatever you choose, it demonstrates the skills, qualities, values, and interests that would illustrate to the reader, here's why I deserve this scholarship essay. Now, if at the end you feel like, oh, okay, I think it's still really not clear why I deserve this scholarship, then yes, you can go ahead and explicitly say it, but I would say it's better to show them through specific examples all the skills, qualities, values, and interests that you've developed. Again, either through your challenges or through just your experiences in life. Number 10 is the how will you use this scholarship money essay? And there are 2 approaches that I'd recommend. Approach number 1 involves using all the resources that I've mentioned above to write a great essay that demonstrates your skills, qualities, values, and interests. And at the end, saying specifically in just 1 to 3 sentences, how you're gonna use this scholarship money. Approach number 2, which I'll call the financial details approach, instead involves focusing in on the specifics of your financial situation or your family's financial situation, and then ends with specifics of how you'll use the money. The difference between these is approach number 1 is more about you, your hopes and dreams. Approach number 2 is more about the financial details of you or your family. But either way, by the end, you should definitely say explicitly how you want to use the money. Below this video, you'll find an awesome example essay for each one of these approaches with specific tips on how to write each of these. Now, I'd go through it here, but already this video is super long and you've got other things to do. Or you could check out the scholarship essay examples video, which you'll find also linked below. The last thing I want you to know is that scholarship site I mentioned, Going Merry, says that a lot of their scholarships each year go unclaimed. So what does this mean for you? You can basically take that old tip that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. You don't get 100% of the scholarships you don't apply for. So get on it. You'll find lots more tips at collegeessayguy.com. Happy writing.